The silver light of the full moon poured through the clouds like water through broken glass. Commander Sarah Chun stood at the edge of the observation platform, her breath forming small clouds in the cold night air. Behind her, 12 soldiers waited in complete silence. They had trained for this moment for 300 years. Not them personally, of course, but their ancestors had started this tradition, and tonight, after waiting so long, they would finally end it. The creature had first appeared on Earth thousands of years ago. Ancient humans had called it many names. Some called it a demon, others called it a god. The truth was far stranger than any legend. It was an alien being, older than human civilization itself. It had crashed on Earth long before the first humans learned to make fire. Every full moon, the creature would wake from its sleep deep beneath the mountains. It would hunt. It would feed. And then it would return to its slumber until the next full moon. For centuries, humans could do nothing but hide. They built walls. They made weapons. They prayed to gods that never answered. But the creature was too fast, too strong, too intelligent. Every full moon, people died. Villages disappeared. Cities learned to fear the night sky. Then humans discovered technology. They learned about electricity. They built machines. They sent rockets into space. And slowly, very slowly, they began to understand the creature. Scientists studied the patterns of its attacks. They analyzed the strange energy it left behind. They discovered that it was not supernatural at all. It was simply a life form from another world, following its natural instincts. The creature was called the Shadow Maw by modern researchers. It stood 15 meters tall when fully emerged. Its body was made of something that was neither flesh nor metal. It absorbed light around it, making it appear like a moving hole in reality. Its eyes burned with a cold blue fire that could be seen from kilometers away. And its hunger was endless. Sarah checked her weapon one final time. It was not a gun or a missile. It was a frequency disruptor, designed specifically to target the Shadow Maw's unique biology. Her team had spent decades developing it. They had failed many times. Good soldiers had died testing earlier versions. But tonight, the weapon was ready. Tonight, humans would fight back with more than hope. The ground beneath their feet began to shake. Small rocks tumbled down the mountainside. Somewhere in the distance, birds flew away in panic. The creature was waking up. Marcus Wong, Sarah's second-in-command, moved to stand beside her. His face was calm, but his hands were tight around his weapon. His grandfather had died fighting the Shadow Maw 60 years ago. His father had dedicated his entire life to this project. Now Marcus would see it through to the end. The shaking grew stronger. A crack appeared in the mountainside, spreading like a wound across the rock. Blue light spilled from within, cold and terrible. The soldiers activated their armor. The suits were made of a special alloy that could resist the creature's claws for exactly 7 seconds. 7 seconds was enough time to run. 7 seconds was enough time to fight. 7 seconds was the difference between life and death. Sarah raised her hand. Her team spread out, taking their assigned positions. They had practiced this formation thousands of times in simulation. They knew every rock, every tree, every shadow on this mountain. The creature might be ancient, but humans had learned patience. Humans had learned to prepare. The mountain exploded outward. Massive chunks of stone flew through the air. Trees were torn from the ground. And from the darkness within, the Shadow Maw emerged. It was exactly as the old records described, a towering form of living shadow. Eyes like frozen stars, claws that seemed to cut through space itself. It opened its mouth and released a sound that was not quite a roar. It was something deeper, something that vibrated in the bones and made the soul want to flee. But the soldiers did not run. They had been trained to resist fear. Their minds had been conditioned to stay calm even when facing the impossible. This was what made humans different. This was what made them dangerous. They could feel terror and still choose to fight. The creature turned its head, sensing them. For a moment, it seemed confused. Usually, prey ran. Usually, prey screamed. But these tiny beings simply stood there, weapons raised, waiting. The Shadow Maw had lived for millions of years. It had hunted on dozens of worlds. It had never encountered resistance like this. Sarah gave the signal. The team opened fire. The frequency disruptors sent invisible waves of energy toward the creature. The waves were tuned to match the Shadow Maw's cellular vibration. When they hit, the creature screamed. Not a roar of anger, but a scream of genuine pain. For the first time in thousands of years, something had heard it. The creature charged. It moved faster than anything that Psy should be able to move. It crossed the distance between them in seconds. One soldier, Jan Wei, was not fast enough. The creature's claw struck him, sending him flying into the darkness. But before he died, Jan fired one more shot. The beam hit the creature's eye, causing it to stumble. Sarah and the others kept firing. The creature kept screaming. It lashed out wildly, destroying everything around it. Trees were reduced to splinters. Rocks were crushed to dust. Another soldier fell, then another, but they kept fighting. They kept hurting it. Marcus moved closer than anyone should dare. He had modified his weapon to deliver a concentrated burst. It would burn out the device completely, but it would deliver 10 times the normal damage. He aimed at the creature's chest, where earlier scans had shown something like a heart might exist. The creature saw him. It swung its massive claw toward him. Marcus fired at the exact same moment. The burst hit the creature's chest. The claw hit Marcus. Time seemed to stop. The creature froze, its body shaking violently. Cracks of blue light appeared across its shadow form. Marcus lay broken on the ground, but he was smiling. He had done it. He had wounded the unkillable monster. Sarah screamed a command. The remaining soldiers focused their fire on the cracks in the creature's body. The energy poured in, expanding the damage, spreading through its alien biology like fire through dry grass. The Shadow Maw tried to retreat. For the first time in its long existence, it tried to run from its prey. But humans had prepared for this too. A circle of beacons surrounded the mountain, creating an energy fence that the creature could not pass. It was trapped with the very beings it had hunted for so long. The creature turned back to face them. Even wounded, even dying, it was terrifying. It gathered its remaining strength for one final attack. If it was going to die, it would take as many of these humans with it as possible. Sarah stepped forward. She was the last one standing. The others were dead or too injured to move. Her weapon was almost drained. Her armor was cracked. Blood ran down her face from a wound she could not remember receiving, but she did not stop. She walked toward the creature like she was walking into a strong wind. The creature watched her approach. In its ancient mind, something like respect flickered. This tiny creature, this fragile being of flesh and bone, was not afraid. After millions of years of hunting, the Shadow Maw had finally found something truly dangerous, not because of strength or speed or power, but because of will, because of the refusal to accept defeat. Sarah raised her weapon and fired the last shot directly into the largest crack in the creature's chest. The Shadow Maw shattered, not like glass breaking, but like a star dying. The shadow form collapsed inward, then exploded outward in a wave of cold blue light. Sarah was thrown backward by the blast. She hit the ground hard and lay still. When she opened her eyes, the sun was rising. The full moon had set. The mountain was quiet. Where the creature had stood, there was nothing but a crater filled with strange glowing dust. The Shadow Maw was gone. After thousands of years of terror, it was finally over. Sarah tried to stand but could not. Her body was broken in too many places, but she was alive. Against all probability, she had survived. And more importantly, humanity had won. Rescue teams arrived an hour later. They found Sarah lying in the crater, surrounded by the remains of her team. Of the 12 soldiers who had come to fight, only 4 survived. But they had done what generations before them could not. They had killed an ancient god. The story spread across the world within hours. The news traveled to the colonies on Mars and the stations orbiting Jupiter. Humanity celebrated, not just because the threat was gone, but because of what it meant. For thousands of years, they had been prey. They had lived in fear of something older and stronger than themselves. Now they knew the truth. There was nothing in the universe that humans could not overcome if they worked together, if they refused to give up, if they kept fighting even when all hope seemed lost. Sarah spent months recovering in the hospital. Doctors told her she would never walk again. She walked within a year. They told her she would never fight again. She returned to active duty 18 months later, because that was what humans did. They refused to accept limits. They refused to believe anything was impossible. A memorial was built on the mountain where the battle had taken place. It listed the names of everyone who had died fighting the Shadow Maw throughout history. Thousands of names carved into black stone. Sarah visited it often. She would stand before the names and remember the fear. Remember the courage. Remember the cost. Years passed. Sarah grew old. She trained new soldiers, teaching them what she had learned. She told them stories of the hunt. She reminded them that the universe was vast and full of dangers. But she also reminded them of something more important. No matter what they faced, no matter how ancient or powerful or terrifying, humans would find a way. They always had. They always would. On the night of her death, Sarah looked up at the full moon one last time. It was just a moon now, just silver light in a dark sky. The shadow was gone. The fear was gone. She smiled and closed her eyes, at peace with a universe that had finally learned to fear humanity as much as humanity had once feared it. The hunt was over, and humanity had won.